With watercolor makes a really, really cool effect. Today we're going to be looking at that technique and about 20 other ones. I'm Jenny. I help people reconnect with their color creativity, and today we're being creative with watercolor. Watercolor is one of the most magical art forms out there. There are so many different ways to use watercolor, and it's all about the flow of the water and being able to control it or not control it. And we're going to see that today as we go through all these different techniques. For these techniques, you can have lots of different supplies, but for the basic supplies that we're going to have today is you need watercolor paper. The next thing that you are going to need is a brush, and there are hundreds of brushes out there. I, for the most part, am going to be using water brushes, and they come in different sizes. That's where there's water like in a tube already, and you just squeeze it and you get the water out. The next thing that you're going to need is something to dab the watercolor on. I just use a paper plate and a paper towel. That's to get rid of the color after you use it, so you can pick up more color later or a different color. It's not totally necessary. You could use other means, but it's to have a palette. And I have this palette from Yasutome and it's great. And the last thing that you're gonna need is watercolor paint. They can come in tubes, they can come dry. There's so many different forms. We're going to be using Holbein granular watercolor flower set and the Luminous set today. And these were sent to me in exchange for a review, and the colors are just beautiful and magical, and they really help me illustrate all these different techniques. You'll have to let me know which one is your favorite. Before we start on the techniques, we're going to use masking tape to make 9 different sections. And masking tape is really great in watercolor because you can create some really nice edges. So it's going to help us create it, and they'll look really nice at the end. And now we have our palette. I'm going to put some paint in. I like to use this for the paint and for the water. It's really versatile. And the first one that we're going to look at is dark wash. So dark wash, I'm going to be demonstrating these as we go along. Dark wash is when you do it really dark. So I'm going to show you what it was like dried before, and then I'm going to go through and explain it to you on how you can achieve this. So then I put one layer, and then I put another layer on to give me that dark wash. And it'll end up looking super pretty when it gets dried, as you saw before. The next one is salt crystals. So this one is really interesting. So we're going to do that dark wash again. So we're going to come in here and we're going to get some more paint, and we're going to put that wash on there as that undercurrent. So a lot of these start out with the same wash. And so we have our light wash, and then we're going to put our dark wash on there. And then I'm going to grab some salt. So this is just table salt that I'm going to grab, and I'm going to put it on top. Oh, we got to do one more wash. So that way it'll be super dark, and we'll really get the different crystals in there when we put it on there. Just smoothing everything out right now, making it nice and dark. And then I'll grab the salt. It's in my hand, and I'm just going to put it on the top there. And when it dries, it will resist that watercolor, and you won't have watercolor in that area. So you can really use this intentionally if you want to. The next one is kosher salt. So this one is going to be the same as the salt. We're going to do another wash like we did before. We come in here, we put our paint on the paper. It's so satisfying. Like, I just love it. Like, nothing is ever the same with watercolor. You can come in and it'll be different every time. That was a lot of pigment right there. This one is going to be super dark, like even darker than the dark wash. You can have so many different layers of paint. It's really fun. So I have so much on there that I'm going to do the one below just because there is so much on there. So that's another thing you can do. You can see how much paint you have left. So I'm going to come over. I have my kosher salt in my hand. I'm going to take it out. I'm not going to put on like too much because these are really, really big. So I'm going to put it on here just a few at a time, but it's going to take a lot of that paint. Like, it's going to repel a lot of that paint, even with just a few crystals. And it will dry super nice. The next one is rubbing alcohol, but I did it better on this page. I figured out how to actually do it because before I was trying to do it and I didn't do it as well. So I'm just going to show you the good one instead of the bad one. So I'm going to do a light wash on here. Like I have done before, I'm going to do a little bit of a gradient going down. All right, I'm gonna add another little bit layer, and since it was wet, and it kind of was it had a little bit time to dry, it's gonna go on super nice and dark like that. All right, so now I'm coming in with a paper towel. You could use a Q-tip, but I didn't want to go all the way up to my bathroom to get that. So we're coming in here and we're seeing that resist from the rubbing alcohol. Now you want to kind of make sure it's like a little bit dry, but you don't want it to be a little bit wet. You don't want it to be dry at all, but you don't want it to be super wet. There's a happy medium that I found to use the rubbing alcohol, and when I did it before, it was way too dry, and some of these areas were a little bit too wet. So you have to find that happy medium of where it's going to resist when it dries. And I think this looked a lot better. I feel like I could practice this method a lot more. I will say that the salt and rubbing alcohol might take away some of the properties of the paint, and they might not last forever just because they're a little bit acidic. So be wary of using these techniques. The next one we're going to do is we're going to blend, and we're going to do glow in the dark. So Holbein makes a series of paint that is glow in the dark, the luminous paints here, which I will do a video on. They're really cool. So we're going to combine like a pink color and a purple color and see what we get. And here's the pink color that we are going to put in. It's going to be super pretty and it'll look really good. So I'm going to just dab a little bit of that pink on here. A little bit goes a long way with this watercolor, by the way, because it's so pigmented in the tube. Holbein makes a really good watercolor paint. So we're going to get it on our brush, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to paint it on to our page. And I just needed to get a little bit water out because the brush wasn't super wet. So we put on a little bit. Now we're going to go put on our purple. And I'm going to just keep going until I have a good mix here of what I like. Oh, now I got a lot more purple on there. I could have probably just left it. It'd be interesting to see what one layer would be, because now I feel like it's pretty dark, like all the other ones have been pretty dark. So now we're going to put a little bit more pink on, because I feel like now we're all purpled, so we might not get that glow in the dark if we do it the way that if we just leave as much as we have on there. But we could, I don't know, maybe that would be something to try. But oh my gosh, that is super pink now. We could just see what it was like. So maybe I'll try that another time. So we're gonna let that go, and we're gonna let it dry, and then we're gonna try it out. So let's see if it glows in the dark. So we have a black light here, and for sure it glows in the dark now. Isn't that so cool? So all the paints do that. I will do a video on all the paints, and we'll be able to see them and how cool they are. The next one is wet on wet, and this technique is really cool. I haven't actually used it a lot, but I want to use it more to do like lettering and such. But this is where you draw a design with your water, and you can really see what you're doing with the water while you're doing it, because you know, from the angle you can see what is on the page. It's not like super obvious, but you can see it. So I'm going to make sure my water brush is really clean, and then I'm going to come in here and not have too much water. Take a little bit of water off, and I'm just going to create a pattern. So you can kind of see, like I said, you can see the water on that page. And so now I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up the paint. All right, so I'm going to put it on the tip, and I am going to see what this looks like. All right, let's go for it. So we're not seeing a ton right now, but give it a minute. Get a little bit more paint on there. Oh, we're starting to see it. You just have to get that balance. So like I said, a lot of this is just practice to know how to do it. And, you know, you get the technique and they're like, okay, I really like that one. Let me perfect it and make it a little bit better. So you can tell I'm able to get a little bit more paint out at the end. So I'm going to go back over the front part so I can get more paint on here. And it's really cool. It just goes within where you put your water on here. So right now we're really controlling the paint and the water. Whereas before, sometimes we just let the paint do its own thing, but this one we've really controlled where the paint's going. The next one, I think I have it wrong. I think it's wet brush on a dry medium. So we're gonna come in here with our brush. We're gonna get our watercolor on here. And it definitely is wet, so I had that opposite. I should cross that off. We're gonna get our wet, and we're gonna just make lines, some fun lines here. And I think this is really cool. This would be really cool for grass, trees, whatever you want to do. I'm going to put a little bit more in here. I probably should have stopped, but I do like the white areas on here. So you can, like the dichotomy of the white with the watercolor. So you get a little bit of differentiation there. It's like, I think this one ended up being like one of my favorites, and I might do it more often. It just gives that messy look. The next one is going to be Splatter. So Splatter is very interesting because, so I put the pigment on there. It's going to make a mess everywhere. So you just really flick it with your finger, and you're seeing now that I'm actually going to get it on the paper now, but it's getting everywhere else, which is kind of fun because like you can combine more than one effect. So if you like an effect, you can layer them on top of each other. You can do other things with them. You're like, oh, I really like this, and I really like the splatter. You can do lots of different ones. And I did one recently with this in a koi water brush video, and you can check that out. I did that splatter there. So that's a lot of fun. The next one is going to be saltwater. And this one took me a couple times. I like this one so much better than I did right here. So I made some salt water, and it's off to the side. So now I'm just putting it down on the paper. I'm putting a little bit of salt water with it. I'm just going for it because I really just want, you know, really see if this was better than the other one, because the other one just looked like a white wash. So I'm really getting in there, trying to get the salt in there. So that way I can combine it with the pigment, and it'll hopefully be different than just brushing it on. And you guys saw it. It was different. It was really cool. I really like this technique too. But like I said, this one probably wouldn't hold up the best because salt, you're not really supposed to have salt on, you know, artwork. So over time, it might not work as well. But it is a cool effect now. I don't know if there's something you could put over the top of it so it wouldn't affect it like that. But yeah, this one ended up being one of my favorites. It's really cool. And, you know, the salt gets on the page too, and just a lot of fun. And I'm trying it over here where I did the salt water before, but nothing's really happening. So I think you have to do it when it's wet. The next one is going to be a light wash. So, you know, when I first started this, I was doing a bunch of dark washes, and I wanted to see how light this could go. It could probably even go lighter than this. It's interesting. Sometimes when you put watercolor down, you don't think there's any color there. And then you look at it later, you're like, oh, there was a lot of color. So you just have to, like, you know, try it different and practice. The next one is going to be a bloom. So this is where you get the edges are really crisp. So I'm purposely not going to fill up the entire area. And, you know, it's where water pools and collects. So you kind of just let it be and let it do its thing, but especially along the edges. And once, I mean, it would be nice to get more control of this, and I think people do, but, you know, at least knowing how to do it and why it's there is really cool. So I'm just putting this water on and letting it pool, and then when it dries, it'll kind of spread out, and those edges will be really defined. So if there's things that you want to do with that, it's really it's nice to know the technique so you can do it. Next one is paper towel. So we're going to use a paper towel to blot these. And I've done this before, and it turned out really cute, like as for a background. And I did it with some of my, the paper towel that I used for my watercolor. It looked really pretty. And I was like, oh, I should put this on a background, and I think it would look fun. So we want to make sure that we get enough pigment on this paper towel to be able to put it down. And we want it to be wet enough that it will transfer from the paper towel to the page. So it's not getting 100%. So, oh, there we go. We've got some. And now I'm just trying to get it around that square so we can see it. And, you know, I could have stopped here. I could do more. And like I said before, it's like once you really get control of this and you know what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier. But now we got plenty. We can put it all around. And it should dry really pretty. Well, we know it does because we saw what it was first. So I'm just putting it everywhere. We're kind of just blotting it on the paper. You can get a little bit of control this way. It's not like the wash. It's more of like, you know, blots on the paper. The next one is going to be plastic wrap. So we're going to take some plastic wrap. We're going to put the paint on the plastic wrap, and then we're going to put it onto the page, which I think this one's going to be really cool. So I'm going to just take it with my finger, put it everywhere, blot it on again, but this time with plastic wrap. So it has a different texture. It's a little smoother than the paper towel. What do you guys think? Do you guys like this one? I think it looks really cool. I think that would be a cool background too, because you get that white in there. So a lot of time the negative space with watercolor is really interesting too. Next one is dry, then wet. So we're going to take the paint straight from the tube, and then we're going to put it onto the page dry. And then after that, we're going to apply some watercolor to it. So we're just taking it straight from the tube. And you can, afterwards we'll see the dry. So when you take it straight from the tube, it doesn't act like regular paint, because watercolor is watercolor. It really wants to be like with water. And so you can kind of see it's a little flaky when you do it. So I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time, because watercolor is kind of expensive and you don't really want to waste your paint but if there's certain aspects that you want, like you're like, oh, I want it to look like this, or effects, I guess, that you want, then you could do it this way. Just taking a little bit more paint, putting it all over the page, trying to see, get lines. But like I said, watercolor is best when you just use it as watercolor. But you could, with this, you can define kind of where you want it to be, and then we're going to use the water in a really cool method. So now we're just kind of flicking the paint up, and I think this looks really cool. So if you kind of know what you want and where you want more color and less color, you can control it a little bit more with this method. Now this is the dry method that we already saw, so we're just going to flick the paint again. This could be used, for grass, for whatever you want, for details, like I kind of said before, if you want really pigmented areas on your page. And I've noticed it's a little bit darker than the color ends up being. The next one that we're going to do is gradient. So we're going to do it like the wash that we did before. And I don't know if this gradient ended up 100%. It's probably one that I could practice again. And we're going to put a lot of watercolor at the bottom. And then we'll get different gradient throughout. But you could, the more you practice, like let's say you really like one of these techniques. You're like, I'm going to practice this one a lot until I have it perfected. That's what you do. And you're like, this is how I want to use it in the art. And then you can do it that way. So I'm trying to put more at the bottom here, just so we get that gradient. And knowing how something will dry, like seeing that vision, because this looks totally different than when it gets dried. It will help you out so much when you do watercolor. And kind of knowing that vision. Okay, the next one is a resist. So we're going to use Crayon to do the resist method. We're just using like a Crayola crayon. I could try other crayons. I have some other ones too, but we're going to try a crayon. We're going to write teamwater because that's kind of, part of the video. We're also going to do some other teamwater stuff at the end. And so I did a little heart also on there. All right, so we're going to come over here and see how this method works. See if it's good or if it doesn't work. So I can see it there, like not like great, but it's there. So I would definitely practice with this method a little bit more. Maybe I didn't push down on the crayon hard enough. I'm going to try putting a little bit more crayon on here and see if that helps. And then do another watercolor over it. But yeah, I'm having kind of a hard time seeing it for sure. But let's see if this helps at all. I mean, it helped a little bit. So maybe, you know, doing more than one layer when you initially put it down. I mean, I can see that heart. So it's definitely something to try. Next one is the lift off method. And so we're going to do like a regular wash like we did before. We're just going to put it on there. Put a little bit more on here. And then we're going to take a paper towel. And I think I have a little bit of yellow in that water, unfortunately. I don't know how the yellow got there. But we're just putting that wash on there. Like a lot of these use, like I said, a base wash. All right, so let's put a little bit more on here before we do the lift off. We're just making sure it gets everywhere. So this is like a medium wash compared to some of the ones I've done. It seems like above. Right, so I got this paper towel. You could also use a Q-tip also. I think it probably should have been a little drier. But I'm just going to take it off. Oh, look, you can really see that. So you can use this technique for like clouds, for, you know, just anything that you want to have a little bit less color on in some area. So you could, if you want like a circle, or you want to like draw something around, or, you know, you could use this method, like I said, with a Q-tip. This is the glazing method. So what it is really good is for creating depth, like if something is behind something else. What you want to do is you apply the first layer, then you apply the second layer. You have to make sure they're dry in between, otherwise they'll blend into each other. And I didn't do like this 100% great, but like I said, practice makes perfect. And so what you'll do is you'll apply the first layer, and then over here we're applying the second layer. The other one has dried, so we're gonna get that crisp edge, so it'll appear like, you know, maybe these are petals, like one is in the background. That for flowers, this is really good technique. Okay, and now we're gonna come back in here. We're gonna do our final layer. I think I wasn't as patient as I should have been, and I think some of it wasn't 100% dry, but that's why we practice. And so now this other one, we're going to kind of come back in and see if we can get this line. But like I said, the more you practice, the better you'll get. I really want to try this technique more and more. And it'd be interesting to try this. I feel like it gets darker over time. So maybe like all the petals, like I don't know how you could do it. Maybe do one petal at a time. So now we're going to try glazing with lines, and you can see that the first one I probably didn't do as great. So we're going to just start with a light wash on the bottom. And I really should have glazed up, but I decided to glaze down because you can see I got so much more pigment on the top. That was a really good gradient. That would have been a good gradient. So now I thought it dried, and it didn't really. And so my first glazing line wasn't that great. But that's why we're practicing, of course, so that we can get better at these things. And the line, I mean, you could go for that effect. So if you did want that effect, but if you want the straight line, so I'm coming in here now and it's completely dry. So now I am getting this straight line that I didn't before. So that's a good practice for me. And then this is just good practice in general for glazing. So then you could do it. You could do, like I said before, kind of with the petals, like do one petal at a time, so then they wouldn't be so dark around each other, you know, for the next one. But if you do want that layering, you can get the layering. So now I'm making sure that it's dry because I wasn't very patient before. We're going to come in, we're going to put our next line on here, and I am getting a line that is really good. So I did wait for it to dry, which is good because I wasn't patient before. The next one we're going to do wet on wet. So we kind of did this one already with lines, but now we're just gonna, you know, make a big area wet on wet. So I'm gonna put the water down. Now I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna touch it all around. I thought this one was really cool. I really wanted to see what it looked like if in a big area. So this is a way that you could control the water. Like if you don't want to do wet on dry and you want to have a little bit more control on where the water goes, you can paint the water first and then you can put it down. And then I'm just getting it everywhere. We'll see how it dries. I did have a little bit of yellow still in the palette. I should have really cleaned it out, but oh well. The next one is going to be layered blending. So layered blending, we are going to do one wash and then we're going to do a blue on top of it and we're going to get a different color. So we're going to do one wash of purple, then we're going to let it dry and then we're going to put the blue on top of it and then they're going to like act together so they won't mix with each other. But when you see the blue and the purple on top of each other, they will blend. And which is kind of counterintuitive to like when you blend other items, sometimes they, like you want to make sure it's wet, like with markers, but for watercolor, you can blend on top of one another. So we're going to come in with our blue over here. And we're going to put it on top. It's, I mean, it doesn't have to be completely dry, but you just want to make sure it's not like super wet. We're going to come in here and we're going to get this lovely shade of blue violet or violet blue. I think it would be blue violet because blue would be the description word and it looks more violet than blue. So I think it's violet, blue violet. Right now it looks more blue, but when it dries, it looks more violet. All right, the next one is wet on wet blending. And so with this one, we're going to do like we did before. We're going to clean our brush off really good. All right, so now we're going to come in here and we're going to make it wet like we did before above. Now we're going to come in with our blue and we're going to just put it in there like we did with the other one when we did the wet on wet. We're going to put it at the bottom here. And then we're going to put the purple on the top and we're going to be able to get this blending effect. So you could do this with more than one color too. I mean, or more than two colors. You could create a rainbow effect, you know, going down the rainbow like with the wet effect. So we're just going to come in and make sure that we have all the paint on here. I'm just going to blend the blue in a little bit. And we'll see what it's like when it dries. Like I said, it looks totally different later. So now we're going to do wet on dry. We kind of already did this a little bit, but we're going to try this again. So this is a heart that I'm making. And then we're going to do some little dots on the side. So you can really control your paintbrush with this. And this would be good like if you did a background and then you could do the wet on the dry once it dries. The next one, the last one we're going to do is a Posca resist. So I've never tried this before. I'm using a Posca brush. I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work. We'll see. So we're going to put this on here. Then we're going to let the Posca paintbrush dry. And then we're going to see what it looks like. I'm going to do teamwater again. So we're going to come on here now. It's all dry. And we're going to see what it looks like. Let's see if we get any resist. So at first I felt like it didn't resist that much, but now I'm starting to see it come out. And this almost seemed to me a little bit better than the crayon. So I definitely want to try more of this resist method because there's even some liquids I think that you can do it with, but I just used what I had on hand today. But you could also come in here with like, you could do the white over it again later. You could use like a black line, you know, have this be kind of like a shadow. you could do a lot of fun things with the resist. You know, it just gives it a little bit of resist here. All right, so now we're going to take the tape off. So this is part of, you know, this, and you can see that a little bit of the paint, I didn't press the tape down as well as I should have. So I'm going to try using a Posca marker to go in and cover these up. And it works actually pretty well. So you can come over here and hide all the lines, anything that you don't want showing. And now, because we're doing team water, we're going to do some team water. We're going to do full pages with some of the techniques that we had before, so that we have 3 coming together. We're going to put the salt on there. We're going to get some bloom, you'll see later. And then on here, we're going to do 2 colors coming together. We're going to put a little bit of salt, and it kind of, it kind of dried, so it didn't work as great as it should have. We're going to take these off, going to get all the salt off of them. That was the kosher salt, and it worked really well. So we're going to write team water here. Okay. Which one did you like the best? The right one is with the kosher, and then the left one is with a little bit of salt. You can see a lot of fun methods. One has pink, one doesn't. So let me know which one you like best. Which one of these techniques ended up being your favorite? I don't know. Like, I loved this saltwater one. I don't know if I loved the salt crystals as much. Maybe if I experimented it with a little. I liked this one, ended up being really cool. The wet on wet was neat. Splatter. I liked glazing. I feel like I definitely would have to practice with that one. The rubbing alcohol disappointed me a little. I always love layered blending or the wet on wet blending. The dry then wet was pretty cool to get a striking one. I like the plastic wrap. Bloom is classic right there. On the resist, I probably liked the Posca versus the Crayon resist a little bit better. Yeah, so the wet on dry is classic also. So let me know. Oh, and then this one, of course, it was glow in the dark. So which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And go check out Team Water. Let's get water to 2 million people.